To stop the stranded car. Monash coming around onto the back straight, and after that stunning 1 minute 42.4, they'll be looking to improve on that. That's already one of the lowest times of the day, and that's on their first out lap. Yellows are still being waved in the section where Wollongong appear to have stopped. Hopefully they'll be clear by the time Monash has come through for a clean run. And as Monash come across the line for the second lap, they set a 1 minute 40.4. 2 seconds quicker than their out lap. Monash successfully navigating the Wollongong car and continuing along the track. If anyone wants to come give me an update on what happened to Wollongong, that'd be great. Looks like Auckland's currently ahead of ECU in the pit lane. We'll keep it that way. If my eyes don't deceive me, I see another car on track. The University of Wollongong has successfully restarted. Nothing on the timing. And the last lap from Monash was 1 minute 45.0. Yeah, please. We're a bit louder this time.
So we hit us. Whoa.
Yeah, I've got Greg up here with the commentating now.
Howdy, guys. How you going? No, it's a very good day out here today. Pretty good turnout from everyone. We've got the PA turned right up, so that's really loud now.
Yep, oh, Wollongong hitting a cone as they come across the line in 4 minutes 18. Looks like we've got Monash coming down the back straight now. They'll be looking to improve their last lap time.
Isaac just looking at Melbourne, giving it a good old rev. Giving it a rev at the start line, getting excited now.
Something Melbourne seem to do. Always at like 10 grand in the pits.
Not far away from being launched now.
Monash coming back across the line with a 1:38.5. Quickest time of the day by far. And Melbourne are away. They'll be looking to beat Monash and Wollongong in this stint. With Wollongong's unfortunate stop on track, they should be able to. And Wollongong are across the line for their second lap, a 1:40.25. They have the pace to match Monash. Maybe. The fourth car about to be released on track is the University of Canterbury. Posting a stellar time in the first endurance. They'll be hoping to capitalize on this in the second one. And Monash crossing the line again at 1:38.4. Quickest lap so far. Setting lap record lap after lap.
Well, I'm back with you here, Isaac.
Thanks,
sorry I was a
God.
bit delayed. I was in the massage tent at Monash. I'm feeling very relaxed, but looks like their driver's not.
And Melbourne across the line with a 1:45.
Those are incredible lap times from Monash out there at the moment. It's
Well,
looking
the rest
like
of
an
them have
autocross
dropped
lap.
about 10 seconds too.
Looks like autocross laps every single lap.
And Canterbury on track.
Well, these cars are looking pretty quick. You can really see the skill of this Wollongong driver here, throwing the car around, hitting that cone. I'm pretty sure that's the guy that was in autocross yesterday. He knocked a few cones with the rear wheels.
Wollongong with a lap of 1:39.1.
Well, as predicted, this second endurance session is going to be a big one.
Certainly is, only 0.6 off Monash. And here they come again, completing lap 5. That is a 1:38.85.
Oh, it's just super fast. That's just what they do. That's a beautifully set up car from Canterbury there. You can see it just weaving through that start-finish line, swinging from one side to the other. You'd think that's probably got a little bit of aero balance towards the front, just allowing the driver to really hook it into corners.
And Canterbury on their first lap, a 1:40.8.
Well, I have some news from our friends from Griffith. They were saying that the two drivers that drove earlier, they weren't their fastest driver. So apparently there's a fella coming out a bit later that's even faster than those two. But apparently they're worried he might not be able to keep that car in one piece. So that should be a bit interesting a bit further on.
They're really taking it to the Top Guns last round. Only a couple of seconds off the pace. It'll be interesting to see what they have this time. And Monash across the line, setting a 1:38.5. In for driver swap.
Yeah, they're very quick. It's just started and in for the driver change. Oh, I think these cars are looking beautiful out there. All well set up. You can see why these cars did so well in the autocross and are running early. They just look perfect through the corners. The cornering speed we're getting here compared to some of the later runners is impressive.
Melbourne across the line with a 1:42.7 and Canterbury a 1:39.3.
Well, I wouldn't be surprised looking at that Canterbury car whether they go the fastest in this session. That was just flicked from one side to the next. And I think this start-finish line is probably the place to see how well these cars are set up. There's rapid direction changes. They've got to turn right very hard, and then a short left and then right hard again. And the cars that are well set up are really showing it through that section.
Wollongong coming around to complete lap 4. Timing screen says 1:44.9.
I think you can see this Monash cars, the Wollongong cars, not quite got that cornering performance of Canterbury and Monash. You saw it in the skid pad, not quite able to do those times. Canterbury and Monash 1 and 2 on the skid pad. And you see the Wollongong driver driving as hard as he can, a very skilled driver, but probably doesn't have the machine under him that can do the lap times we're seeing from Monash.
And if we take a look at Melbourne and Canterbury, it looks like they're catching up. Wow.
That's impressive speed from Canterbury there. They'll be a bit disappointed to be held up. It's going to be quite a while before they can get past Melbourne. And they're chasing that win for the endurance.
Lap times across the line, a 1:44.8 for Melbourne, and a 1:39.1 for Canterbury. 1:39.1.
So that's what it looks like when you see 5 seconds a lap. Just saw how fast Canterbury came on Melbourne there. Melbourne couldn't even come close to holding them back. Monash restarting, ready to come out again.
And Canterbury have made it past Melbourne. And Monash are back out on track.
Well, they had that banking run in the first session, and now they're pushing it as hard as they can.
Canterbury isn't pulling away from Melbourne. There could be another change of position here.
Well, it's great to see this contest out here with Canterbury and Monash pushing as hard, and Melbourne trying to hold on to Canterbury. It's an amazing effort by both of these teams here. As we're going, we're also trying to see who's going to come out and be the team to beat here. I'd say it's Monash, but we'll see if Canterbury can keep up.
Wollongong across the line, 1:45.0. Monash setting 1:40.15 on their outlap. And if we keep an eye on track, Canterbury doesn't seem to be pulling any further away from Melbourne. This could prove to be quite interesting.
No, I think we saw this with UNSW in the last run. Once you got behind a team that was going a bit faster, you're finding where to take those lines, and Melbourne's taking advantage of that right now. Oh, look at that Canterbury car going through there.
Just throwing it into the corners.
Oh, it's beautiful to watch, isn't it? I love it through here. I think this direction change, it just doesn't look like it's slowing down at all.
Canterbury across the line with a 1:39.2. Melbourne 1:40.4.
Well, I think we just saw those two cars come through this front section here, and you can see the Canterbury really tighten that line. It almost looked like they were going straight, where Melbourne was distinctly having to turn left there and add that extra control input. I'm hoping that the Auckland car gets out there, because I think you're probably so narrow that you'll just go absolutely straight line through that section.
I hope the Auckland car gets out there too. Soon followed by ECU, of course.
Yeah, well, in both cases, I think the teams are working very hard. Some problems are easy to fix. when it comes to comp, but some problems take a long time, and they'll have had band-aid solutions. But hopefully all of the teams that didn't manage to finish endurance in the first run can get a run. It's important to note that Melbourne was one of those teams. They didn't finish the first endurance, but they were looking fairly strong out there.
Monash across the line with a 1 minute 38.65. 0.2 off their best lap.
Well, I think even though Monash is going faster around this track, I think it's a lot down to that driver. The Canterbury car, if you're watching it through some of these sections, it just seems to have a little bit more grip, a little bit more response than what that Monash car has. So I think the Monash driver is probably giving that car probably a good half a second or so just in how he's driving it.
So I'm looking here at the delta between Canterbury and Melbourne for the last lap, and it was a 1.2 second gap. We'll see what it is this time when they come across the line. To my eyes, it seems to be a pretty similar gap. Canterbury's hitting a 1 minute 39.0.
Oh, the point at which they're getting...
and Melbourne
no.
have stopped on track.
Was that going in for the driver change, or do you think that was just a mistake?
Engine's still running. By my lap count, they are not going in yet for a driver change.
Oh, no, that's a horrible mistake. He wasn't able to loop around, as we said. He's barely... Oh, no, taking
I
the
said a cone
cone.
too. Oh, well, it's really horrible to see this happen to any team, let alone one of the top runners, but they have come in for their driver change.
Oh, that's incredibly disappointing for them. Any time you do hit a cone or off course, even if you are coming in for a driver change, it does count. So that'll be a bit devastating for them. But at this stage, with not finishing the endurance run first time out, they'll be pushing to finish, get the points on the board, and probably be happy or content with that, if not happy.
And Wollongong are up to the exit of the pits as Monash comes across the line. Monash with a 1 minute 38.3.
If you are watching this section, which is probably the easiest section to see what's going on, have a look at the throttle on points of both Monash and Canterbury. The Monash car looks like it's getting on full throttle at about that white line, right after the bump there that's on skid pad. Canterbury look like as they're turning left, they're getting onto the full throttle, maybe metre and a half, 2 metres earlier than Monash. And added up around a track, that's quite a lot of performance. One of the judges had mentioned that he believed that the Canterbury car was the fastest car here and that Monash were the fastest team.
Oh dear, Canterbury have made a similar mistake to Melbourne.
I wonder if there's been a change in some cones there, or is this a driver changeover
But
again?
they have come in for the driver change.
Well, that's worth noting. If you are in the lineup of the drivers of the cars, note that driver change direction. Because in both cases, that off course there, that's pretty much given... I think would have given Monash the win for endurance if they can finish this run. And one mistake like that to cost you so dearly is pretty disheartening.
Melbourne coming back out, but that would explain why my lap count was out. They did not pass the transponder line. It has been amended already. Canterbury on their last lap sitting a 1 minute 44.8.
Well, I think where this Monash car is really shining is once you're getting up into those slaloms, those faster direction changes, the Monash car looks like it's unbeatable. In the slower stuff, it's not quite matching the sort of performance. So you can see how much later that full throttle was than the Canterbury car going around. So it's making up time in other parts of the track.
Monash coming across the line with a 1 minute 39.0.
Melbourne back out. Well done, Melbourne.
A very quick driver change there. Wollongong completing another lap, setting a 1 minute 48.0.
And likewise with that Wollongong car, you're seeing the difference. It's completely out of that corner before they're able to apply throttle. Obviously, this is the part of the track we can see the most clearly. Around this slalom's in front of us with this concrete wall, it's very difficult to see what's actually happening behind that. And some of the other track is a bit further away to sort of assess what's going on. But if you are in a different position around the track, just start to watch the cars as they go through different parts of the corner. So some cars will go very well through lane changes and very fast sections or sweeping bends, whereas other cars are set up to take the really tight turns.
A really interesting bit for me is the wide slalom over the back on that back straight that Monash is coming into right now. Look at how quickly they're taking each apex compared to some of the other teams.
And if you note that apex, those apexes are not in a line. They're offset, and they're offset in the way that you don't really want to drive them as a driver. So if we see Melbourne coming through the same section, And you look how difficult that entry is, and it looks like it's going incredibly slow compared to Monash.
Keeping in mind this is Melbourne's first outlap for their new driver, so he is seeing the track for the first time.
Yeah, for those of you that don't follow Formula SAE, or this is new to you, each driver only gets to walk the track beforehand. They don't really get a good idea of what's going on until they're in the car.
And Monash there setting a blinding lap with a 1 minute 36.9.
Oh no, they've got a problem with Monash's engine.
There is oil. Smoke from the back.
Oh no, this is a horrible, horrible result for them. They've just set the fastest lap time, probably something that nobody here will beat, and the engine looks like there's smoke coming out.
It appears to be blue and white smoke. Could be rubbing bodywork, could be oil.
Now they have had problems. They have had problems with this car over the weekend. They've had engine issues. They've had noise problems. They have had starting problems, which was counted down to electrical. They've come through. They fixed the car up, got through scrutineering, came out, only did 4 laps on autocross and put in 4 times that could have beaten anybody. They came out here in the morning, put in the star of the show, and it looks like this problem, although it's going to be devastating for them, has probably come at a time where if it does stop the car, at least they have a score for all of the events. Looks like it probably was an oil leak going onto a hot exhaust or something. We're not seeing any smoke now, but the oil of the engine is supposed to stay inside, so hopefully they've got enough left in there. You can see, now this is a great opportunity for all the people watching. If you see the smoke coming off, you've almost got a visualization of the aerodynamics. You can see the vortices forming off the rear wings. So at the moment they're providing us a flow visualization of their car. You can learn a lot by watching this. You can see the effect that the air has pushing that smoke to the side.
And they have been black flagged, mechanical black flag, and Monash is pulling into the pits. This is very, very unfortunate.
That almost certainly will be a black flag in that car. They'll check that car, but there is no way that car will be legal to go back out onto the track. You aren't allowed to fix the cars in that driver changeover area. So unfortunately, that will be the last we're seeing of Monash.
Melbourne across the line with a 1 minute 42.3.
Now the exciting thing now is that the other teams with these sort of times on the board, Monash's early run in endurance wasn't a super fast run. It was consistent, but not the sort of times we're seeing now. I think the fastest lap in the morning was a 1:41. So now this opens it up to a lot of the other teams to pull out an advantage.
And Canterbury are back out on track. They'll be looking to improve their lap times even more. And now that Monash is out of it, they might be trying to take that position.
Well, the problem with Canterbury is they got that 20-second penalty for going off track when they came in for the driver change. And so that's going to be worth a little under 2 seconds a lap. Now, if they can lap at what they were doing earlier, that's going to put them very close to beating Monash's first time.
Yes, the endurance really does come down to the penalties. From where Kevin and I are, we can't see a lot of the track and can't tell if people have missed gates down the far end. So when that and the cone count come in, we'll know the real answer.
Oh, look at this. Look at this beautiful car. Would you say this is the best looking car here, Isaac?
It's definitely the best looking car here. Second is ECU, of course.
Oh, okay, thank you for that. But I think you got the order wrong. And both of our teams were fighting for sort of those top places, 1 and 2 spots, and we were sort of joking about it. But I think for both teams, Auckland and ECU, they're really just going to be looking to finish this event. And there's obviously reliability concerns from that first run, and they've made the fixes. We're just hoping they hold up for the laps we need.
Melbourne unfortunately hitting a cone at the far hairpin, but coming across to complete lap 8, lap 9 maybe. Setting a 1 minute 42.97.
And you can see the driver there. Instead of driving it straight through that section like Canterbury is, where Canterbury looks like it's being driven and steered, the Melbourne car is getting the back end around and really flicking the car, very close to the concrete wall there. That's the closest I've seen so far.
I was scared about it the first session. I'm scared about it the second session. Wollongong across the line with 1 minute 48.7, closely followed by Canterbury. They are catching up again.
Oh, look at this car. This is a beautiful car to watch.
It's being thrown around. Oh, dear.
Oh, a misshift there.
1 minute 48.1.
A very simple car from Canterbury. It's that engine sound is back again. I'm wondering if that's a misshift or just hitting rev limiter. Oh, Isaac's got his heart in his throat at the moment. You probably won't get too much commentary out of him until this car's over the line for at least for its first lap.
No way, it's going to be all 15. I'm going to be silent.
All 15, he's going to be silent.
I'm very nervous. Obviously, every team coming here wants to finish an endurance. We're unlucky in the first. We did take a cone strike and break a couple of important things, which we have since fixed, put a Band-Aid on, nearly literally. And we're across the line. I'll pull up the time, 2 minutes 02.5.
Oh, let's hope it gets over the line. It's a beautiful car. You guys have done a fantastic job, and your team's to be commended. It's really difficult when you come away from a competition like this and it hasn't gone to plan. But the work is in the whole year. It's not in just this competition, and there's a lot to take away from building a car like that.
Melbourne across the line with a 1 minute 43.7.
And I'm thinking the best combination, I guess, is if we could get one of those Melbourne drivers or maybe the Wollongong drivers to give that Canterbury car a go. Oh, look at that.
They're coming close to that wall.
I mean, the level of driver control there is amazing. I just think that there's probably a little bit more in that Canterbury car. I get a feeling that if the drivers were able to push it, there'd be a 10th here, a 10th there.
Oh, Kevin, do you hear that? I think I just heard ECU start up. And if my eyes do not deceive me, Canterbury is catching the Wollongong car.
Oh, absolutely. That Canterbury car, it's just a beautiful machine. 3 years it took this team to build a car of absolute world quality. You know, you're looking at a car that potentially could be winning endurance in Australia after 3 years of competing.
Canterbury made up 5 seconds on Wollongong that lap. If they continue that again, they'll be passing them at the end of this one.
And again, the passing the cars is good fun to do. It's nice to catch the team and pass them, but it does slow you down. If you catch a car at the wrong time, you've got to basically run at their pace for a section of the track until you get to a passing lane.
It has to be said, Melbourne is looking like it's getting quite close to Auckland.
It certainly is. Now, I'm really looking forward to seeing this Auckland car through this front section that we've been looking at. It's a very narrow car. It gets around, it takes a very tight line. But we see Melbourne very, very close. They'll be passed in the next passing lane. Auckland's, you're not used to seeing Auckland holding up cars. It's usually the other way around. Yeah, very tentative from the Auckland driver there.
Unfortunately, the Auckland lap time, 2 minutes 03.5.
So obviously that car not running at its true pace and just hopefully conserving it, getting that endurance done.
Canterbury catching Wollongong and given the blue flag.
Oh, well done, Canterbury.
Yes, Canterbury does seem to be developing a very distinctive backfiring noise on perhaps upshift or every shift.
Yeah, I noticed that yesterday in the autocross. It only happened towards the end, and we certainly didn't hear it this morning.
It does remind me of the 2014 Monash bangs.
You can see this driver just struggling with it, not quite as good as the previous driver.
And that is Wollongong in for a completed endurance.
So what was that last lap time from Canterbury?
Last lap time from Canterbury was a 1:47.8. ECU are out on track. Kevin being very quiet now.
Yeah, I think roles are reversed, and I'm definitely feeling it now. Absolutely, the car is not 100% at the moment. There was an issue that occurred during autocross, and it hasn't been entirely resolved. So this isn't the best we're seeing the car, and the team is just hoping we get a finish with this.
No, Auckland are in a very, very similar boat. I sympathise with you. We're just looking to make it through an endurance and get some points on the board.
Well, this is where you would wish you could take some of the laps you've done in testing and just transfer them here.
And look at that gap that Melbourne's pulled ahead of Auckland.
Oh, it's an incredible performance from the Melbourne driver there, but unfortunate for Auckland.
Melbourne setting a 1:47.1.
Remembering that Melbourne here, they didn't finish the first endurance, and they're looking good for the second.
Auckland across the line, 2 minutes 1.1.
Well, clearly that Auckland car, we've seen that machine go much faster before. And obviously Band-Aids aren't as good as carbon fibre. But if you have to fix your car with them, you have to live with the performance you get.
Oh, a bit here and there might be a carbon fibre Band-Aid, but we're just trying to get it to the end.
Well, there you go. I think we've just come up with a new product, carbon fibre Band-Aids. It has now been patented, by the way.
Canterbury across the line, 1 minute 48.0.
At these sort of times, it's going to be, with the penalty they got for missing that 20-second penalty, they're going to be really pushing it to win the endurance from here.
Kevin, would you like me to read the first ECU time?
I would like to hear the time, but it doesn't look good.
Oh, it is a 1 minute 55.4.
Oh, 1 minute 55.4. That's a good first lap. That's actually Reese's first go around. He wasn't one of the autocross drivers, so that's his first go on one of the tracks. So that's a pretty good first lap.
Yes, the driver in the car for Auckland is similarly experienced. He did our skid pad runs. He'll be very excited to be out on the endurance track.
Well, if you remember when ECU was out in the first one, there was actually a traction control failure, and the traction control was coming in too much. One of the electrical connections had gone, and the car was without power, and then also had a problem that was related to the autocross.
Melbourne coming around to complete their penultimate lap. 1 minute 45.4.
This is the last lap for Melbourne. If they complete this, they've completed endurance for 2015.
It's actually going to be very competitive between Melbourne and Canterbury by the looks of it.
Do you know, even though you've got a situation, well, let's get the time there.
Oh, that is a 1 minute 56.8. We are dropping the times.
Oh, that's good to see. Even though you do have a situation where things aren't going to plan, it doesn't always go to plan when you're out engineering in your career. And these students learn a valuable lesson by trying to come up with a solution on the spot.
Canterbury across the line, 1 minute 47.9.
I think if there was any one car here apart from the ECU car that I'd like to take home, it'd be that Canterbury car. Oh, and the Auckland car.
Thank you. Pretty in pink.
Although if the ECU car has the problems that it's been having, maybe I don't want to take it home. Maybe you guys can take it home.
It won't fit in my carry-on. ECU across the line, 154.1. Dropping 1.5 seconds from the previous lap.
So time's coming down, and I think when you're in this situation, you are just counting down the laps. So you're not really worried about the lap time, and I'm not even seeing that as a 154, I'm just seeing that as 12 laps remaining.
Speaking of laps counting down, this is Melbourne coming in to complete their endurance.
Everyone on the hill, when this car comes over, they deserve a big round of applause. They've been looking fast this weekend. They've done a great job, and they've come out and finished endurance. What an effort from Melbourne.
Melbourne across the line with a 1 minute 45.0, and we see Curtin out on track.
That's fantastic. I think another team finishing endurance, I mean, it just adds to that finish rate. It's a great effort.
Now, as most teams here will know, Curtin had a fairly hard run with things yesterday. They struggled to make it through noise and some screwed things and ended up missing, unfortunately, skid pad and acceleration. So it's great to see them out for a second endurance.
And they did finish endurance the first time around,
They
didn't
did. Auckland across the line, 1 minute 54.2.
Oh, you can see this Auckland car's really starting to pick up a bit of pace now. The driver's taking a much tighter line and doing a fantastic job.
As we said in the first endurance, the consistency of your lap time is the most important part with an endurance race. The first couple of laps are critical to your overall time.
I think what you see with some of these drivers, if the car has been repaired, the first few laps out, the driver will be very tentative what they're doing with the car. But if you are sitting in the seat, you can't help but get the blood get to your head, and you just want to go fast. The same will be true of ECU. I know Reese, he'll be wanting to push.
ECU across the line, 1 minute 51.3.
Oh, don't do that to me, Isaac. I want to see 140 soon. He's starting to get down. He's starting to show this experience. And it is a young team. They'll come back a bit stronger next year.
Canterbury across the line, 2 minutes 34.8.
Yes, Canterbury had stopped on track on that lap, and unfortunately with that off course and that stoppage on track, that's almost certainly taken away that endurance win from them.
That is unfortunate. They were posting some stellar lap times up there with Monash. And Curtin across the line, first lap out, 1 minute 47.4.
Wow, look at that, a 147.4 from Curtin. That's an amazing first lap. That's one of the best we've seen.
That is the second quickest of this entire session.
Oh, that's an incredible effort. First lap out from Curtin. Not only have they got rid of their problems, but they've really added a lot of speed.
Sorry, I was wrong about that being the second quickest of the entire session. Second quickest of the cars on track right now.
Still, with a 147 opening lap, you'd expect that they'd be able to get down to maybe 144.
Those of you with a keen ear may have noticed a lack of a distinct noise from the Auckland car as it comes past. There appears to be a problem with the shifting.
Now, Isaac, of course, has actually got tears coming out of his eyes at this point.
Two things causing the tears, one our car and two sunblock in my eyes.
Oh, sunblock in your eyes. It sounds like the name of a song.
I've been singing it for the last 3 days.
Reese is starting to get into this car.
It'll be very interesting to see the time ECU post this time around. A 1 Canterbury coming in to complete their second endurance, a 1 minute 46.8 in lap.
What a team, this Canterbury team. 2 endurances. They were out early on the skip pattern acceleration. They were fantastic in autocross. What an effort. 3rd year here, and they've put in a class act.
And let's see what time Curtin can do this time around. 1 minute 45.4.
Well, it looks like it's going to be a battle from the west at the moment. Unfortunately, Gary Ush, my boss, is up by the tent, and I think for every second that Curtin are faster than us, I'm losing money. So I'm looking at our budget evaporating right now.
$1,000, $2,000.
Well, don't count it, Isaac. It's making me sweat.
Auckland coming around again. Keep an ear out for that noise. Nursing an issue, but across the line with a 1 minute 52.8.
Is that when they chew in for the driver change?
It is, by my math. Thank God.
So we want to see this car restart. Oh, ECU slow there. So that's probably the driver just struggling with that circuit. That was earlier on, that part of the track was a lot more open than it is now. I think they've really tightened that area around the hill, which is a real shame. Last year, that was an area that the ECU car really shined. It was quicker than most cars and no longer has that advantage.
And we have a new car on track, the University of Newcastle. Don't get it mixed up with Sydney again.
I'll try not to. That's not looking like a fast lap here from ECU, especially he was getting the time down, so it looks like there's some sort of problem there.
Well, he'll tell you in a moment. It is a 1 minute 53.9.
Yeah, so well off the pace, about 8 seconds slower than the previous lap. So I hope that's just driver errors and not a problem developing.
Of course, the car you're most interested in right now is probably the Curtin one, really.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, they do a fantastic job, but no, I think I'm going for ECU here.
She'll go $1,000 per second.
Oh, no, don't do it to me, Isaac.
1 minute 45.6.
Oh, no, we've just gone into the red. It looks
$7,000.
It looks like we're going to be making a paper mache car next year.
As our suspension leader infamously said, composite work is just paper mache.
Oh, it really is. The composite work. I find we work a lot on mentoring our students. So when first years come in, and one of the tasks they're often involved with is composites. And I've heard a lot of teams say that a welded steel space frame is a lot easier to build than a composite car. But we've found in our experience it takes a good 2 to 3 years to train somebody up to weld properly. But we can teach somebody how to use a bit of cloth and glue in about a couple of hours.
Of course, the usual first-year job with composites is just sanding stuff.
Sanding and sanding.
University of Newcastle coming around for their first lap, setting a 1 minute 50.9.
Oh, that's an excellent first lap. This looks like a quite a bit faster driver than what we saw in that first session.
And my heart is out of my throat. The University of Auckland car has successfully started and will rejoin the track in a bit.
Oh, that's amazing. But mine is starting to lodge itself, and I'm getting very nervous as this car's completing. How many laps do we have on the ECU car?
You've currently got 5. Looks like you need another 9. You've held the gap to Curtin, though. Haven't lost any more money this lap.
And what was that time?
That lap time was a 1 minute 49.4.
A 49. That's anything with a 4 in it. I'm pretty happy at this stage, unless it's a 2:04.
And that is Auckland way by the sound of it, starting in second gear.
I'm hearing a sound, I think, from the Curtin car. It sounds engine related. There was a bit of backfiring there.
Oh, I think they may have just missed a gate. And
Oh, it's
the
sounding very rough.
Curtin car, 1 minute 49.6.
Yeah, definitely slower than what they've done before, and hopefully it's just a little bit of a driver error. When you do make an error on a track like this, it can often take a few corners before you get back into the groove, and one small error when you've got a pile of cones standing in front of you can strip seconds off a lap time.
Well, last year one of our drivers missed the same gate several times because it's very hard to communicate to your driver exactly where they're missing things on the track.
Well, that's where you really need to get some of those Timetronic guys with their ESP, psychic abilities.
Last lap round of the University of Newcastle setting a 1 minute 50.9. That was on their out lap. We can probably expect a significant improvement this lap. Ooh, tail happy across the line, 1 minute 45.9.
Now, you might like this. Unless I'm mistaken, Auckland is chasing down ECU. They are getting closer.
I do like that quite a lot.
Well, I'm not a big fan of it myself.
Both nursing issues. It's going to be an interesting one, I think. Of course, the deciding factor may be fuel efficiency between you and I.
Oh, I think it's all going to be whether they finish.
Don't say that. They're both going to finish.
Oh.
And ECU are in. That is the scheduled driver change.
Oh, don't do that to me, Isaac.
Big sigh of relief there from Given.
My legs are starting to turn to jelly at the moment.
ECU 147.8, Auckland 147.3.
A 147.8, that's quite respectable. 147.3.
147.3.
Well, it looks like there's a big contest on there.
Of course, the car to watch here is Curtin as they come across the line again. 149.7 last lap. 152.2.
They're looking very closely at the car at ECU.
Don't be too worried.
I sort of want to distract them. Look over here at the hill. The hill.
They only have 3 minutes.
I'm waving at you. Oh, no.
That's your second driver in the car, I think.
It is the second driver in the car, but they're looking very closely at the back end of the vehicle.
Oh, dear. 2 scrutineers around it.
Oh, about to add to 4.
Oh, dear. Well, to distract you for a little bit, Newcastle coming around to complete another lap.
Scrutineers, look up here. I'm waving.
Newcastle across the line, 1 minute 45.4. That is their best lap so far.
It's a real shame. We were seeing some very solid lap times there, and I'd like to see them just get back out and finish that run. It looks like Auckland's coming through. I don't know how many laps are remaining for Auckland.
University of Auckland completing lap 3 for the second driver. 4 laps remaining, I believe. Last time out it was a 1 minute, well, this time 1 minute 41.8. 141.8 is not bad.
Yeah, 141.8. That's excellent. Sorry, I'm not really paying too much attention to the racing at the moment.
That's fine, I understand. No more scrutineers around the car.
It has started. They have let it start the car.
Curtin last out, 1 minute 52.19. 1 minute 55.6. They do appear to be nursing an issue round.
Yeah, that's definitely an issue with their engine. Hopefully they'll finish. And no, it looks like the ECU car is being pulled out. For the first time since 2009, ECU has not finished endurance. It's been a very good run, but sometimes it just doesn't go your way.
I am sorry to hear that. You always want every team to complete at least one endurance, but you guys gave it a really good shot. My condolences. Newcastle coming around. Last lap, 1 minute 45.4. New lap, 1 minute 48.1. The University of Queensland petrol car lining up in the pits. 3 cars currently on track. Auckland coming round to complete their third to last lap. The last lap, 1 minute 41.8. This lap, 1 minute 39.8, 2 seconds off. Now both Waikato and Curtin, the other two cars out on track with Auckland, are 4-cylinder naturally aspirated engines. Inherently they use a little more fuel. Sorry, University of Newcastle's out there too.
Well, I'm back with you. I've had a little bit of a cry, wiped up the tears. It's very disappointing. It's been a lot of hard work to try and get the car up. Prior to this competition, the team had got up to ranked 11th or 12th in the world, and that really hurts to come here. And it was really quite a minor issue that stopped them. It was, in the end, what ended up was a crack in the oil tank and an oil leak that was just too late to fix.
Curtin, 1 minute 57.2. Time for the driver change. Yes, it's very unfortunate what happened to ECU. I'm very sorry to hear that. Despite the playful banter up here, we both really do want each team to finish in endurance.
Well, I am very happy to see the speed that the Auckland car's got. It looks fantastic.
Waikato across the line for the very first time. Their lap 158.6. Newcastle 1 minute 48.1. Auckland last lap 1 minute 39.8. It'll be interesting to see if we can make up any more time. Coming across the line 1 minute 39.4.
1 minute 39.4. It looks like a different car out there. It's just looking fantastic.
4/10 off, and I'm sure there's something in my ear that it's definitely not quite right, but we're still going.
No, it's looking fantastic. I think from here we're counting down the how many laps remaining?
Honestly, I think it's 2, but I'm a bit stressed. I can't be sure. I just want that thing to make it home.
Oh, well, it's not just heading towards home. It's heading towards home pretty quickly. I think the first driver may have been nursing it a little bit, but it's looking like there's speed in the car. I just regret that we weren't able to see it as absolute best running around this track.
And if we look down the back, the University of Newcastle has just passed Waikato on track. That Newcastle car looked pretty quick in a straight line.
Oh yeah, it's a pretty impressive vehicle. A fairly conventional vehicle, but it's been implemented very well.
Nick Tacone, unfortunately, in the slalom. Waikato successfully avoiding it. Let's take a look at him down the straight.
No, I'm more interested in Auckland coming up. Look at the speed differential, and Auckland is catching these two at an incredible pace. It's going through turns faster than those cars are going along the straights.
It's tricky because I want it to be really fast, but at the same time I don't want it to get caught in traffic. So I'm hoping that Waikato and Newcastle manage to stay ahead.
I think they'll stay ahead. There's not that much time left, but you can see how quickly Auckland have got into these two cars.
Newcastle 1 minute 45.8. Waikato 155.1. Now I wonder if we'll see similar to the other cars where Waikato now managed to keep pace with the University of Newcastle. Auckland across the line 1 minute 40.4.
That's beautiful. I think what I was hoping to see is exactly at that start-finish line, see that car just coming through. There's no aerodynamic downforce going on to speak of. There's a small undertray at the rear, but it won't be doing anything near what we're seeing from Canterbury and Monash. And the pace that was holding over that start-finish line, it's just such a small, light and beautiful car.
The undertray in Auckland is primarily a defensive measure to the engine, which is quite low in the car. It has saved it now. Saved it successfully one time.
And we see a blue train passing by, this one branded by Monash. Oh, it's as Isaac reminds me, it's getting a bit confusing. There's a lot of blue teams out here this year. There's Monash, Melbourne, Auckland, ECU, South Australia.
I mean, I can't really put a paint in the wind has picked up, a bit, which may cool down the track a little bit, but we should see some pretty quick times from all the teams through this session. I am very excited to see what Griffith can do.
I think that's all right. Everyone up here is waiting for. Those Griffith guys are fantastic. The attitude, it's just all smiles. You know, they only just made it out onto the skip pad and acceleration, and they've just been happy the whole time.
Adfa was looking particularly quick in the first session too, as was the University of South Australia before they unfortunately stopped on track. So this is the University of Tasmania coming through on their outlap. University of Tasmania, 1 minute 49.8. That is a staggeringly quick outlap.
Oh, that's amazing from Tasmania there.
And Curtin getting past the University of Queensland petrol car on track. Curtin across the line, 1 minute 47.6, followed very rapidly by UQ, 2 minutes 0.3. Yes, now Kevin, I do think I spied a quick fix on that UQ front wing. I wonder what happened there.
I don't know whether that's a cone hit that they got or whether they're just trying to keep it off the ground to stop any scraping. If they see excessive scraping, they will pull you in and black flag the car.
University of Newcastle, 1 minute 47.9. Yes, now UQ is one of the cars that seems to be very, very low to the ground and quite stiffly sprung. So they could, they're probably expecting a little bit of scraping.
Yeah, well, I think out of all of the cars, the rear tray of UQ has probably touched the ground more than anybody else. It does look like it's an interesting rear end. They've got the beam on the car, and the tunnels that they're running don't really have the same sort of height at the back of the tunnel. It's a very different approach to the aerodynamics than say Monash with the very deep tunnels at the rear.
University of Tasmania obviously posting a stunning outlap time last lap of 1 minute 49.8. It'll be very interesting to see what they can post this lap.
I'll get a spare one.
Coming round, 1 minute 47.8, 2 seconds down.
It seems to have cooled down a little bit, I think, from this morning. A bit of cloud cover. It's not quite as hot. But make sure you are wearing sunscreen. The UV rays do get through the clouds, and it's very easy to get burnt here. The wind dries out your skin, and the sun burns what little moisture you've got off. So make sure you're wearing sunscreen and drinking a lot of water.
Curtin across the line, 1 minute 46.6. Yes, if anyone's seen me in the last couple of hours, I am a sun-dried tomato.
Oh, you sort of look like the lobster that Monash was cooking up.
Did that ever arrive?
No, I don't think I ever got that lobster.
Queensland Petrol across the line, 1 minute 52.8, 8 seconds quicker than their previous lap.
Yeah, I'll expect that Queensland car will spend most of its time in the 40s.
Yes, when they manage to string together a good lap, it is remarkably quick. University of Newcastle across the line, 1 minute 48.5.
And so Isaac's leaving us for just a little bit. He does have the times, so if he's calling times, you'll hear them. Otherwise, it'll be just me babbling along for a little bit. I'm joined again by Charlie Ping. He's you might have seen some of his posts on the forum. He did a bit of a video, sort of giving a bit of information for students, and so I've been involved with Formula SAE for quite a while. And we saw this morning's session that Missouri, the team from your country, although USA is more like a collection of countries with their states, that from your country had a very solid finish. Is that what you expected from them?
Yeah, I mean, they had a good finish in Nebraska, and that's why they're here. So I think they got a pretty sorted out package, and good to see them get a finish in the first event here. I'm sure they're excited to get 2 endurance events. I know we enjoyed that when we came down here. So much pressure in Detroit with just one, so yeah, good on them.
Well, I think one of the things we noticed when they were going around is, unlike the other teams, their first lap was almost the same as their last lap. They were on the pace straight away, and is it common for your drivers in the US to have a lot of autocross experience?
Yeah, well, in the Midwest where Missouri is, there's a lot of autocrosses especially, so it doesn't surprise me. they're probably tuned in at going to the autocross events where you get maybe only one or two chances to get a fast lap in and only one lap. So, yeah, it doesn't surprise me their guys are tuned in to learning new tracks and going out there hard and consistent because, yeah, it's big in the Midwest, especially in Nebraska. I know UTA and those teams from Texas up to even Indiana and Ohio. There's just a lot of wide open flat spaces in that part of the country, so they get a lot of opportunities to do autocrosses. So.
Yeah, well, I reckon they were probably the most consistent team in times here. And when you're looking at these endurances, it's nice to put in the quick lap times, but it's not about the quick lap times. It's about the overall time. So I'd expect that the Missouri team will be a bit higher up the endurance rankings than what their lap time would suggest. But you've come down here and you've seen just how much speed that Monash have. Do you think that that's a team that's got the sort of pace that you'd expect from the very top teams in the world?
Well, I think they've shown that through the past few years, yeah, that they're one of the best teams in the world. It's hard to judge, but obviously with teams like Missouri coming down, it's a great opportunity to kind of have a data point from different competitions. So it'd be interesting to see how it stacks up at the end here and how that compares relatively to the rest of the world.
Yeah, absolutely. And when we talk about this being a worldwide competition, and we'd probably say at this stage that the German competition is probably the one to win in the world. These cars here in Australia, most of them won't run against those international teams. And so it's very difficult to gauge how well these teams stack up against those in the world. But it's always good to see international teams travelling. I know that you came down in 2003. What would you say to some of these teams from Australia thinking of, say, going to a US event or going to Germany?
Well, I'm sure everyone would love to do it. So I don't know if I can make them want that anymore, but it's great. I mean, we had such a great time coming down here in 2003, and it is more difficult because, obviously it's a difficult competition anyway, compressing everything into a year. And when you have competition halfway through the year and you have to travel across the world and ship things, and, we had to wait for our 2003 car to come back, but we had to wait for a lot of parts and tools and components to come back for 2004, so it really put our program behind a little bit in 2004, although we still finished third that year in Detroit, so we were able to make it work, but it's a lot more work than we expected, I think. So I'm sure a lot of teams want to do it, but if you do get the opportunity, you definitely go for it. But don't underestimate the amount of time it'll take and the amount of resources it'll take away from your next year's car, and try to make sure you plan for that. But it's definitely worthwhile.
So at the end of the day, all of these challenges comes down to good project management, pretty much what this competition is about. So thanks, Charlie. Okay, well, we'll get some times now. Isaac's back with us. I think he was down personally giving a hug to every member of the Auckland team. He's a very happy fellow that they've finished, and I think he can feel relaxed that as a team leader that the team has got through everything.
I am very happy. I did go down to congratulate them. And that is Curtin completing an endurance. Congratulations to Curtin.
Oh,
and Griffith out on track.
Oh, here we go. Now this is, I don't know whether they've got their firebrand. They think they've got their fastest driver and the slowest out of the four out in this autocross or endurance. I just don't know which one's going to be in the car first.
Interestingly, Utaz and Curtin setting very similar lap times. Here's Newcastle across the line, 1:44.7, and that is their final lap. Congratulations on finishing an endurance.
Well, that's an excellent finish. I mean, 1:44.7, that's a very good lap time, and they were putting good lap times throughout that run, so that would have been a really good endurance finish for them.
Yes, 1:44.7 is placing them in the top half of the laps, outright lap pace today. University of Queensland crossing the line last time with a 1:56.0. And we see ADFA out on track.
Yeah, ADFA coming out, just like Auckland and ECU before, and Melbourne, hadn't finished their first endurance run. They'll be looking to, first of all, get that endurance run on the board and hope that it's got some speed. But most of all, want to leave here with everything finished.
Obviously, most teams use the first endurance as a kind of banker. You put the smoother drivers in because you just want to finish an endurance and make it through. But for the teams that didn't successfully finish one the first time around, this second session can be quite stressful. Here come the University of Tasmania across the line, 1:50.9. It's going to be very interesting to see the first lap time posted by Griffith, just so we can compare it to the other outlaps and their times in the first session. As mentioned in the first session, they are a first-year team competition. That's a 2-year car, and they've got about 6 or 7 people building it, which does mean 5 out of the 7 are drivers. They reckon they've got their quicker driver in this time.
Yeah, they have one that's going to be fast, one that's not. So you've heard that this is their quick driver? Or?
No, I haven't. No, it's just that they're in this endurance session. I don't know which one it is.
Yeah, I would say it might be the second fella. What sort of time
it
was that?
might be. The first Griffith lap is a 2-minute 07.9. UQ across the line with a 1-minute 52.9 in for a driver swap.
Oh, well, I think UQ didn't finish that first event, so...
No, they didn't. They'll be very happy to make it this far, but this, I believe, is where they made it to last time. And unfortunately, we saw the car wheeled back into the pits.
Well, let's hope they get it started. There's hopefully nothing like what we saw with ECU, which was an oil leak. And hopefully they'll get back out on track.
A reminder to people just how driver change works. There is a 3-minute untimed window, essentially, that doesn't get added to your endurance time, where you're allowed to swap over your driver. And the time recommences when you rejoin the track. So here is Adfer across the line for their first lap. 2 minutes 03.4. And the University of Tasmania across the line, 1-minute 50.3 in for a driver change. So the University of Tasmania is, I believe, a second-year team at the competition, and they've made vast improvements over their first year.
Well, the University of Tasmania is a really odd case because they actually were in the competition in 2001 and 2002, and they had a very tidy car back there. It was largely, I think, postgraduate students working on the car. And they've had a huge hiatus. They weren't really in the competition again until last year. And they, in fact, last year's car they were running tyres that were used in 2002. So you would really look at Tasmania and say, well, it's the second time they've been a second-year car.
I can't imagine running on 10-year-old tyres. It's amazing that they posted any times at all.
Oh, and we just saw Griffith there miss the gate. It's a bit unfortunate.
Ignoring the penalty that will be added, Griffith across the line with a 2-minute 01, 6 seconds quicker than their previous lap.
And I think this is down to the depth. I think in the really top teams, in a team like Monash, those drivers in the second run were going and doing 138s, and I think in the first session they were 141s or something close to that. And so we're seeing a 3 seconds difference between the absolute top level drivers and probably the next 2 drivers in the team, and that's for a really big, well-resourced team. You know, they have quite a large budget, and they have quite a large number of students, and they are one of the biggest universities in Australia, well known as probably, if not one of the best, the best engineering university in Australia. And Griffiths just don't have those numbers to draw from.
Adfer across the line again with a 2-minute 02.9. And if the chair I hear from the pits is correct, and I think it is, the University of Queensland petrol car has successfully restarted and is lined up to enter and is entering the track.
Yeah, that's an amazing effort from those guys, and let's hope we see it finish.
They'll be very excited because I do think that's where they got hung up last time trying to start the car.
Well, I think this, once again, Queensland were out very early. They were one of the first teams running in Australia this year.
Testing in July.
Yeah, testing in July, put a lot of Ks on and not getting that endurance done. And it just happens sometimes. These cars have thousands of parts, and any one of them can cause a failure. You can have the wrong bolt in. You could have something not done up tight enough. You might not have put sealant on a surface, and any single mistake out of all these thousands of little operations that you do can be the end of your competition, even if you are out early.
And the University of Tasmania has completed their driver swap and are back on track. It looks like all the teams are comfortably getting their driver swaps done in under 3 minutes.
Yeah, I don't think it's very rushed in there. They're very calm and collected. I am seeing that the Holden tent is flapping around in the wind, but the marshals themselves are definitely unflappable.
Griffith across the line again with a 2:03.4. So if the lap times are anything to go off, I'd say this is the slower of their 2 drivers in the car right now.
Yeah, so I was really hoping to see the fireworks first, but at least we get a bit of a treat later. Hopefully, if that car restarts, we'll see that Griffith car doing the sort of times it was doing this morning that got everyone so excited. Please remember that all this live feed is on the In Pit Lane YouTube channel. Those videos will be up for later viewing. So if you want to relive your successes or have a look at where you went wrong or where your car can improve, there's some fantastic video footage being produced here.
Adfer across the line last lap with a 2-minute 0.1, and University of Queensland across the line 2-minute 02.2.
Tasmania car looks quite sorted. I think it's it is a second-year team, but this car is a brand new concept for them. They were running a much smaller engine last year, and it's looking quite sorted.
Yeah, their bodywork's looking really clean, and they came across the line with a 1-minute 51.7. Both Adfer and Griffith are on the same lap, according to my live timing, which means they will be coming in for a driver swap very close to each other. Wonder if they'll be able to pass each other in the pits.
I find one of the things with this Griffith car, it seems a bit odd when you're looking at this as somebody that's been involved with Formula SAE for a while. You're used to a lot of these 4-cylinder cars with 13-inch tyres as being sort of the prototype or the archetype of cars that people would base them on, and it's odd to see these 4-cylinder cars with 10-inch tyres, especially something that is quite a conventional Formula SAE car. For somebody that's maybe needs to get away from Formula SAE, it does look a bit odd, but it's working well.
And Adfer across the line again. We'll wait for the timing. Last lap 2-minute 0.1. New lap 2-minute 1.1.
Well, I've been lucky enough to have a few drives of some of the ECU cars with wings, and having driven the UWA cars earlier when I was a student, one of the drivers there, and the UWA cars were no aerodynamic devices on them. They did have an interconnected suspension system at the end, and I will say that the aero cars are absolutely faster. They're more controlled, easier to correct the car into and out of the corner. But there's something that those non-aero cars, there's just something about driving them. They're a lot of fun. You've got to control the back end a lot and really steer with the throttle. If you're watching this Tasmania car, there's a lot of throttle work to get it around the corner. So they are a lot of fun.
Tasmania posting a 1-minute 49.4. UQ last lap round a 2-minute 11, which is a little off their pace, so a mistake or two perhaps on the lap.
And most of the top teams in the world aren't building the style of car that Griffith are building. Most of them have moved to aero and single-cylinder engines, and the cars are looking very controlled. And one of the things I certainly miss from looking around is just seeing some of those absolute top-level cars throwing them around.
Oh, Griffith stopping at the final corner before the timing line. They have successfully restarted and are underway-ish. Can't speak too soon.
Well, one thing I like with what Griffith have done here is if you have a look at the back of their car, there's a huge radiator on the car. And if you have I would strongly recommend you go and visit them because the car is very neat. What there is of the car is very neat. It's a 240-kilo car, which is quite respectable for a first-year team. Not many first-year teams come close to 240 with a 4-cylinder engine in it. And they've built a big radiator on it. They're knowing that overheating is a big problem with these cars. The wiring harness is very neat, and they've just paid that attention to detail of the things that would stop them in an event like this.
Yellow flags on track as the University of Tasmania has unfortunately stopped at the back slalom. UQ Petrol also going very slow. I believe they do have a yellow flag.
Yeah, I think...
and are underway again.
It looked like, I think, Queensland may have looked at the flags and thought they were getting past, I think, because they pulled into the passing lane.
Hopefully that won't hurt their overall time too much. The UTAS, whether off the break or starting again, you can't quite tell from here, but unfortunately it does look like the end of their endurance. University of Queensland, last lap, 2 minute 11.3. This lap, 2:17.9.
So I don't know if there was issues in both of those laps, and hopefully nothing mechanical going on with the car, but definitely slower from what they've seen. At this stage, they'll just want to finish.
Yellow flags for Griffith as well, successfully avoiding the University of Tasmania car, and they should be green from here and underway.
Yeah, that Queensland car is definitely not doing what it was doing earlier. It looks like it's struggling. It's well off the pace. It looks like there is something happening with the car.
The Marshals have successfully cleared the University of Tasmania car from the track, and the track is green.
Well, how quick have these Marshals been? I think they've done a great job so far today.
They have been on it. Hopefully a lot of the teams are, unfortunately.
Oh
dear,
no,
we've suffered a failure on track.
Mechanical failure from Griffith. The left wheel has come off the car.
The driver is poking at it. I think he's a bit shocked too, but yes, the front left suspension has unfortunately failed on the Griffith car.
Oh, that's incredibly unfortunate from them.
Marshall's very quickly changing the track layout to allow the Adfa car through. This is very good, quick work by the Marshals.
Yeah, I'm wondering whether they'll end up red flagging this for a couple of laps, or whether they'll just allow cars to go through slowly and work on yellows.
1 lap from a driver change. They might just do it a lap early. We'll see. They have successfully avoided the car, hopefully come across the timing line.
No, I think they will have missed the timing line.
It did not register, unfortunately. No, it has, 2 minutes 14. Perhaps a manual entry, but they've crossed the line.
Well, I think that's those Timetronics psychic abilities again.
They're pretty good at that. No, it does look like they're going to run, at least for the foreseeable future, a slightly different track layout. With the yellows in place, this won't advantage anyone, of course.
No, this is... And this just shows how good these Marshals have been. They're keeping it running out there, full control, keeping everybody safe, and they were to that incident incredibly quickly.
That's quick thinking. I mean, I doubt this is something they planned for.
No, I think when you're in a team, you come to a competition and you come up with a number of what-ifs. What if this is going to happen? What if this is going to happen? And what's your result? And the Marshals would be doing the same, and they would have been ready for this.
Probably in a handbook somewhere. Front left wheel failure on the Griffith car near the timing line. It's just one of those situations, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think I've been at quite a few of these Australian competitions, and I think it's been a long time since we have seen a mechanical failure like that of a front end coming off. I think in early days there's always a lot of judges very harsh, and rightly so, on things like rod ends in bending, which is really loading threads in bending, which they're not designed to take. And most of the teams take those lessons on board, and it's almost something you never see anymore. And I'm not with the Griffith car, we don't know what that was, whether that was a weld that would have failed or whether that was a fastener that failed. But these sort of mechanical failures have become very rare in the competition.
Credit to the Griffith team. I'm sure they're very upset and unhappy with what just happened, but they did complete the first endurance.
Well, they didn't just complete that first endurance, they slammed that first endurance.
They knocked that thing out of the park. It was impressive to watch.
I still think with that first endurance, they might be, depending on penalties, they might be very close to taking a place or finishing maybe in the top 5 of those endurance runners.
I believe Adfa coming out. Yes, I see the checkered flag for a driver swap.
Oh, this is great to see Adfa coming in. Hopefully they can finish.
Starting in lap, one of their quickest, 2:05.5. And the University of Adelaide are out on track. As we remember from the first endurance, it's quite a loud car. Listen to that roar.
It sounds almost open wheel, proper track car sort of sound.
Actual race car screaming down the track.
I was quite amazed. I did a small amount of work in racing. I was there for, I don't know, about 14 months or something like that, and it's incredible how loud some of the vehicles are. One of the test sessions I was at was we had one of our competitors. Well, the Audis were out with their first diesel cars. We went with the Audi team, but it was incredible how quiet they were. But the Porsche RS Spiders, they split your ears apart. It's amazing how loud some of the real race cars are. These are much quieter and obviously much safer for your hearing.
It was endurance racing.
Yeah, I was involved with sports cars over there, And it's a lot of fun. I love the idea of endurance racing. I think I got the bug from Formula SAE. As again, this 22 kilometres doesn't feel like much, but I think this has more in common with endurance racing than it does with normal, say Formula One racing or so on. If you look at a big event like a 24-hour race, like a Le Mans race, you spend a whole year preparing for that. It doesn't matter what you've done in testing. It doesn't matter what you've done in the other racing. All comes down to that one event. And it's the same sort of preparation that you involve yourself here for a Formula SAE event. You work incredibly hard, and it all comes down to that one weekend. And I think they're very similar in how you approach the problem.
Yes, and I guess in the scheme of things, in a 24-hour race, there are substantial periods where there's not wheel-to-wheel racing, and it's very similar to this.
Yeah, there are. It's a weird situation. I remember sitting in Daytona with about 4 hours of the race left to go, thinking, oh, great, it's almost over. We'll be packing up soon, and we still had more than 2 Formula One race distances to go.
Adelaide coming around, screaming around to complete their first lap. It's going to be very interesting to see what they post. Across the line, 2 minutes 13.5.
Now in the lineup we have James Cook University, and is that UNSW I'm seeing down there?
It does look like it from here. No, that's the Griffith car on the right and ADFA on the left.
Oh yeah, sorry, ADFA and their driver change.
University of Queensland, last lap out, 2 minutes 2.7. This lap, 2 minute 5.7. And ADFA have completed their driver swap, coming back out onto track. Does sound like a good single from here. Very similar, in fact, to the sound of Auckland.
Oh, that's a real shame.
They were particularly successful in design, and I'm sure every team was hoping they'd make it round. I can hear the cheering down in the pit lane.
Oh, he's thrown the steering wheel out of the car. He's not happy.
I do not think the car will be restarting.
The marshal going over, getting the steering wheel, bringing it back.
It is necessary to easily push and turn the car.
Yeah. I think that might be a sign that the driver is frustrated, a little bit frustrated there. You do get pretty heated up when you're driving these, and you do want to do as well as you can. And as a driver, you feel some responsibility sometimes that you shouldn't feel out on the track when your car is struggling. There's very little you can do once you're out there. That's really the team's effort, and it's really sad to see that park up. But they're going to be back stronger than last time. They'll be stronger than this next year. They really use this as a year to make big improvements to the design and build of their car, and they've changed it a lot and done a lot of good work.
James Cook Racing appear to have stopped on track as well. Unfortunately, there is a bit of a hold-up occurring down there. I think from what I can see, the track is green. Taylor should move through.
There is a yellow down near where James Cook are, but Taylor is through, and I think we're seeing UNSW through as well.
High-speed reversing by that Marshall truck. Fairly impressive stuff right there. Quickest car on track right now. And yes, the James Cook Racing car is unfortunately still stuck on track.
I'll tell you, one of the scariest nightmares I ever had when I was a student, barely sleeping. I had a weird dream where I'd attended a Formula SAE competition and we bought a Ford Escort for our car. And I don't think, if you have a look around this track, I don't think a Ford Escort would get around too quick.
No, I was in fact amazed a road car could make it through for the lap video they posted online. It is a very tight track. University of New South Wales making up quite a lot of ground on Taylor Racing, but it's been a tumultuous lap for everyone, I think. Taylor's across the line with a 3 minute 7.7.
Well, I think on one of the really tight Australian tracks that we had, we counted the number of direction changes through an endurance run, and we found out how many there were in a lap. And I think the number was up at 1,000 or above 1,000 direction changes for one of these laps. You're only running these, what's about 1,200 seconds or something like that?
Not particularly long at all. That's 20 minutes right there.
So pretty much every second you're making a direction change on the tight tracks. Probably a bit less here. You get a bit more time. But that's much more rapid than you'd find on a normal racetrack.
And we see the Sydney team out on track. Yes, the number that we tell to people at our shows and things like that is more than one change of second per lap. When you think about it, that's an awful lot.
Yeah, I think if you think around our local track in Western Australia, there's Barbagallo there. There's really only about 7 corners in that you're dealing with, and a good lap time of a V8 supercar around that is around 60 seconds. So you're talking around about one change of direction every I guess 9 seconds or so. So then you elevate that work rate for a Formula SAE competition. And each driver is making about, for the fast cars, they're making about one change of direction every second. It's much less about trying to find the ideal line through and just holding on sometimes.
I'd love to see a V8 supercar against an SAE car in, acceleration, skid pad. Autocross and endurance would be hilarious.
Yeah, I think on these sorts of tracks, about the only cars that can run alongside the very best Formula SAE cars are go-karts, and shifter karts at that, so the powerful go-karts. And I believe in the last few years, with some of the aero getting a lot better on the top level cars, that I think the go-karts would probably find themselves beaten on a track like this.
The RMIT petrol driver has pretty much made his way back to the pits. If someone wants to come tell us what happened, we can spread it around and we'll talk about that. University of New South Wales coming around to complete another lap. Their last lap out was a 2:43.9, their best lap. Let's see if they've improved on it this time.
Well, one of the places that a lot of these teams test are on go-kart tracks, and usually to test on a go-kart track you have to go and make it tighter and put some cones in there to make it realistic.
2:43.9 last lap, 2:18.4 this time round. That's nearly 30 seconds cut in one lap. And for the first lap from Sydney. Oh, nicking a cone, unfortunately, but a 1:59.9.
So if you remember, this was the car in the first endurance that had what looked like what didn't look like. There was a lot of smoke coming from the front right.
No, I still haven't figured out what happened there. Have you heard anything?
No, I haven't had time to do anything apart from babble on this microphone.
Grabbed a sandwich, had a drink, came right back here.
Yeah, straight to the massage table in the Monash tent.
That's why you took slightly longer, huh? Abandoned me for the first quarter of an hour.
Oh, well, it was you got the 101 students. I had the massage therapy 201.
Let me make a fool of myself. And from what we can see, there are no more cars lining up on the grid to come on out. None of the electric teams out yet. They might have a little more charging time before they come out.
Yeah, we should see the electric teams come through. I'm not sure if that's the RMIT electric car, and I wouldn't be surprised if they let the electric cars out with these teams. You can probably run them quite comfortably. Although the RMIT electric car would be lapping quite a lot faster than these two, so they might just hold back a little bit, make sure they get a clean run.
Sydney catching New South Wales down the straight and right on past them. Yes, the Sydney car is it's a bit of a dark horse amongst this particular pack of cars. It's lapping substantially quicker, currently 12 seconds quicker than any other car on track right now, and that was on their outlap.
Yeah, well, I think the UNSW car, we did see faster laps in the first session, so I'm hoping that at one stage they were tracking behind University of South Australia, and they were going pretty well.
Seen out.
No, we haven't seen University of South Australia. They did have a car failure in the first endurance, so maybe they're still repairing it.
151.2 from Sydney, 210 from New South Wales.
And a real treat, we've got Tokyo Denki lining up to start. I don't think we saw them in the first endurance at all.
We did not. I've been looking forward to seeing them all weekend. Their car, to me at least, approximates the go-kart the most of all the cars at the competition. It's always stunning to watch as it squirrels its way around the track.
Oh, if you're starting to lump praise on Tokyo Denki, then you're certainly a good replacement for Jeff Pearson.
I'll keep doing it. I mean, their 1.8 second egress time that I keep hearing, that is stunning. Maybe they'll demonstrate it for us during driver swap.
Maybe using some sort of teleportation technology.
Throw the steering wheel as far as you can, roll sideways out of the car. I think you could nearly do it looking at that.
Well, as you're aware that Japanese are often involved with automotive projects, a lot of automotive companies in Japan, but they're also quite good at their robotics. And what you might not know by looking at the Tokyo Denki car is the car was the easy part. Designing and building the robotic driver was the hard part.
He's very, very lifelike from here. Couldn't even tell the difference.
No, it passes the Turing test. For those of you that don't know what the Turing test is, go and look it up on Wikipedia.
It's way too much effort to explain it over commentary at a race event. So it does look like Taylor are going quite slow around the track, but they are consistent. I imagine they're just looking at finishing another endurance. It's going to be very interesting to see the time Sydney post this lap. Last lap round, they're 151.2, which is quite far up there. Definitely the top half. Aggressive downshift. Oh, hitting a cone, collecting it.
Cone, and it's right jammed under the. It looks like it's lifting the front left. The driver's trying to dislodge it. He's really struggling with the car, and he's dislodged it.
Very well done. 151.4. Obviously, this lap now will be a little compromised, but a lot better than not getting the cone out at all. New South Wales across the line. 2-minute 5.5. Very consistent. The Tokyo Denki car has been released from the pits and has stalled, unfortunately. I'm sure we'll see them come out very soon.
Looks like it's having a little bit of problems getting started there. Sometimes I think with these cars, you feel like you've got maybe 55 starts in a car and you don't want to waste them before you get to endurance. One of the very difficult things about these cars is getting them over the line. They are fairly modified from their stock motorcycle engines, and in a lot of cases, especially with what you've got to do with the maps on restrictors and a whole new electrical system, it can be very hard to start them.
We have unfortunately seen the Tokyo Denki car pulled back and now pushed forward and now pulled back. Well, this might go on for a while. No, definitely pulled back this time. Yes, I believe one of the big changes for a lot of teams is the oiling system. A lot of engines are from bikes that the teams run, and they're not designed for the lateral loads that the engines now see cornering.
No, and you see a lot of with dry sump systems applied to engines, and really just to try and keep some sort of oil flowing through to the engine.
Tokyo Denki are running again, and here comes Taylor Racing in. They've gotten the checkered flag. They are in for their driver swap. Tokyo Denki successfully lining up again. Hopefully they make it off this time. Sydney coming around again. Last lap, 1 minute 51.4. Unfortunately, this is the one where they collected a cone. Still across the line in 159.0.
Seeing piles of drinks being brought up the hill here.
I feel like we did ask for one about 5 minutes ago and haven't had one yet. So if we count the unfortunate casualties so far, we've had, I think, 5 teams stop on track in ECU, unfortunately, into the pits with some oiling issue.
Yeah, you don't need to remind me about that.
Oh, I'm sorry, just trying to keep a catalogue.
I'm trying to keep that one out of my mind for now. I'm actually a little bit safe up the hill. I've got my other faculty advisors there back there at the tents. They'll be packing up madly with the students, and I'm sure we're going to have a massive debrief tomorrow. So
I think your words to me were, the microphone in your hand keeps you calm, and that is most definitely true through this endurance. Don't think I've ever been more stressed in my life.
Yeah, I think some of the early years when we were just beginning at ECU, I found it as a faculty advisor, not being able to be in there, sort of driving the car or getting hands-on, and just having to watch all of that work you put in and supporting that team and making things happen. It's just you feel it just as much as the students do. It's very hard.
Well, the Tokyo Denki car was once again pushed back from the line, but has made its way there again, and they're going. Not stopping at all. Oh, I spoke too soon. Well, I imagine they'll be pushed back and they'll try start it one more time. Sydney coming around again to finish another lap. They are looking very, very quick out there. Only 2 cars on track right now.
I really like the sound of this Sydney car. You know, I think I've got a bit of a cafe racer sitting in my shed that I'm interested in sort of finishing off someday, and then you know, maybe the next 10 years. And I think if it sounded like that Sydney car, I'd be very happy.
Sydney again with a 151.9. That is the distinct sound of a happy single-cylinder engine. A lot of people complain about them sounding like lawnmowers, but well, without the turbo, they actually don't sound too bad.
Yeah, I quite like the sound of that. It's I could sort of imagine yourself on some sort of cafe racer about to crash into a tree, and that'd be the last beautiful sound that you hear.
I have hit a tree myself. We'll not go into that one. New South Wales across the line, 201.8, quickest lap so far.
One of the things that really interests me when we've got all the students in the workshop is everyone involved with Formula SAE seems to have some sort of project sitting in their garages that they think, oh, once I'm finished this, I'll get onto that and I'll finish that project. And a lot of unfinished projects. These cars are amazing to work on. If you try to cost up all of the labour that went into them, all of the time that gets into them, you wouldn't get much change from probably $250,000, $500,000 on a lot of these cars. There's just so much time being pumped into them. But of course, the time isn't costed. They're doing it for love and for trying a learning experience.
I think that is the sound of Taylor's Racing starting again in the pits after their driver swap. Unfortunately, it does look like Tokyo Denki have been pulled all the way back.
And that Taylor engine certainly doesn't sound like a single-cylinder engine.
No. It also sounds like it's idling at about 7,000 RPM.
So Isaac, what would your unfinished project at home be?
There are plenty. I always think to myself, I should get a project car. And then I remember what I'm doing. Pretty much spending all day working on a project car. Oh dear.
Oh,
Sydney
collecting
another cone.
And he's lost
clear.
it. Just for the people up on the hill, if I could grab the students' attention up on the hill, hands up if you do have a project car sitting at home that you're hoping to finish sometime after Formula SAE. There's a few hands going up. A lot of people are too ashamed to admit they've got a project car.
I'd say 90% of the hill are lying.
Yeah, that's a lot of liars there.
And it looks like Taylor's back out on track, kind of missing the entrance, but they did make it.
We have a fellow on our team who, if you ever get talking about Ford Falcons, you better not expect any time spare from about 3 hours. It's all pretty interesting until he starts getting into engine designations and serial numbers.
And that is the University of New South Wales across the line with a 2-minute 04.8 on their last lap before their driver swap.
From the look of the Monash team, it looks like they're all into BMW E30s.
Someone did say that to me the other day. I'd be inclined to believe it. 7 or 8 of them on the team.
Oh, it's a huge number.
Scott himself, I think, has got 2 or 3.
We had a few that were into MX-5s. Yeah, oh, you're an MX-5, are you?
I was.
Well, that's good.
The
That
last one
actually-
fell off a cliff and coming out pretty bad.
That's actually good. I sort of need my hair clipped a bit, so well known in Australia as a hairdresser's car.
Yeah, all right, I'll give you a haircut.
That didn't sound very...
I'll do
no,
it
no,
for
I
free.
think I'll pass.
Looks like we've got the first electric car out onto the grid. That's very exciting to see. From here it would appear to be RMIT Electric E88. And soon following that, UQ Electric. Looks like we might have a couple more cars coming out soon. University of Sydney coming around again. Last lap, 1 minute 51. This lap, 150.9 and in for a driver swap.
Well, keep in mind when you have a look at these cars, we've been here, if you've been up on the hill this whole endurance run, you will have seen the cars at the very beginning. If you saw Canterbury and Monash and Wollongong and Melbourne all going through this same section at the start where we've got this heavy right turn, this small left turn and right again, and you see some of these cars at the end really just going, almost taking a centre line through that path, and not really taking a tight racing line, or maybe not even able to hold that tight racing line. You see where it's not just the difference in cars that is causing these time differences. You can see a lot in the tuning and setup of the cars, not just the design decisions, as well as a big difference in the drivers.
Hearing the sound of the first electric vehicle starting in the grid. For those of you that are unfamiliar, all the electric vehicles are required to play a loud sound to notify you they're starting, and RMIT Electric are out on track. One of the quicker teams this morning, by far and away the quickest electric team, but they're actually mid-pack amongst the petrol too.
Yeah, this is worth watching, and the competition scores both the electrics and the petrols together. Unfortunately, they can't run them together because with 2 endurance runs, the electric cars need to have as much time to recharge as possible.
The big diesel generator in the car park?
Yeah, big diesel generator in the car park. I was wrong before. They aren't being charged by coal. They are being charged by diesel. So effectively what you're looking at is a diesel electric car from RMIT Electric.
It's basically a World Endurance Championship car.
But theoretically, you could charge the batteries with solar panels. We only have to race once a year, so it's certainly feasible.
By my estimation, you'd need 3 or 4 square meters of solar panel on a nice hot day to charge one of them in the time that they have today. And it looks like we're about to see New South Wales come out onto track.
The real downside of the solar-powered cars in Victoria is you only get to charge them, say, once or twice a year.
People have said that about the weather here, 4 seasons in one day. I mean, Tuesday it was supposedly 38 degrees and thunderstorms, and I was very uncomfortable. Redback Racing out on track.
From what I understand, we mentioned it before. Are you a fan of UNSW? Because they are Redback Racing. You're not a...
Well, I'm sure everyone's heard the spider story. I don't like the creepy crawlies over here. The spiders, the snakes, the Australians. Pretty sick of it by now.
No, I think most of the creepy crawlies in the human form over in Australia have come here from New Zealand.
That is Sydney out on track again, successfully completing their driver swap.
This RMIT car, it looks great. It's a fairly, in terms of setup, in terms of aero and chassis, it's very conventional. But the powertrain's working quite well.
I think it might be a quick lap too. Well, it is, a 157.6 on the outlap.
Yeah, that's a good outlap there.
That's putting it up there again, mid-pack with the petrol vehicles right out of the gate.
Well, one of the big advantages with the electric powertrain is the torque is very smooth and consistent. So on a petrol car, unless your engine is incredibly well tuned, you're going to have quite a few dips in the torque curve. It's not constant. Most of that's due to harmonics that are created through the 20mm restrictor. In the rules, you have a 20mm restrictor that you need to pull all your air through, and especially in the multi-cylinder engines, it's you're dealing with sort of tuned runner lengths, and you find that in some parts you'll have a lot of torque, in some parts you'll have big dips, and You still have the power, but it makes it very difficult if you, say, hit the middle of a corner and your engine comes on very strongly. With the electric cars, they don't have to deal with that, and the way that a lot of them are controlled, it's almost like a natural traction control.
It does look to me like the University of Sydney are going to very quickly catch Taylor's University. This does look like, unfortunately, they will be held up for a while.
Now, I'm not seeing the RMIT car come through. I think they may be stopped at the other end of the track.
Yes, I can see it stopped.
But it
down
looks
there,
like it's got going again.
Oh, yes, it has. Wonder what happened there. Perhaps the car in front stopped. Yes, here we are. Sydney has caught Taylor's, unfortunately.
And this, if you're driving in this situation, it can be very, very frustrating. But you just have to keep your cool, and when you get past, you get back onto your lap pace. But you can see that Sydney there being incredibly held up, and from that far passing lane, it's quite a long time before you get back to this the first passing lane in the lap.
And I think we're about to see the first electric car passing a petrol car at this competition.
I'm not sure that we have ever seen this in Formula SAE. We have an electric car has just passed a petrol car.
Oh, that's history being made right here at SAE Australasia. And that was quick down the straight too. That torque,
yes.
instant torque.
It's really taking off, and I think these lap times, if they can find some cornering pace, and maybe do some work on the chassis, this car will go even faster. You can see how far away from the cones that they're driving. They're really not taking a very good driving line. The chassis is nowhere near what we've seen from Melbourne. It looks like in their starting area, a cone has been misplaced, so they're able to straight line where they used to have to go around.
RMIT time, 2:26.9. There was a stoppage on track, of course. And I am happy to say Sydney have made it past Taylor's Racing. University of New South Wales across the line, 3-minute 18.4.
Yeah, looking at that RMIT car, I would say most of the speed that they're going to find out of that car is going to be in their chassis design. So when I'm talking chassis, I'm talking in probably the American sense of chassis, where I'm including the suspension components as well. So what we'd consider vehicle dynamics. So it looks like the powertrain is well sorted, and really need to work on getting the suspension and the wings, and maybe a bit of driver training. And I think we're going to see a much faster lap times from them in the future.
An interesting thing to note with the electric vehicles is the possibility to regeneratively brake. So we do appear to have the Sydney car stopping on track mid-slalom. Hopefully they can get it restarted, and they have. Yes, no, the electric cars have the ability to regenerate energy and feed it back into their battery pack for efficiency on braking.
And that's what makes it such an exciting technology for road cars. Energy use is a big concern around the world. It's very closely linked to sort of environmental concerns and security issues and so on.
A second pass from RMIT Electric. University of Sydney setting a 2:13.6. That's two cars in basically one lap that RMIT have managed to pass.
Well, there you go. It's a record number of cars, beating their own previous record of petrol cars passed.
We're going to have to see if they can make it three. Their first nearly clean lap, RMIT setting a 1:49.9.
Oh, that's it. That's incredible. I mean, that's the sort of pace we were seeing from some of the very, very fast cars earlier on.
Taylor's Racing coming through last lap, 3 minutes. This lap, 2:54. With a 54-second delta, it's entirely possible RMIT will catch up to Taylor's Racing, in fact, again.
Oh, I'd say that's fairly likely.
They're just trying to break their own record repeatedly.
Yeah, and I'm just watching this driver go around, and you can see just how much leeway he's giving the cones, and it's a long way away. I'd imagine this car, if he can just pull it in a little bit tighter, we're going to see really good lap times. And I don't think we're seeing the full story with this car. I think it's much faster than the sort of times we're seeing, which is, I guess, pretty scary for the teams running petrol vehicles.
Well, it is. If you look at the European teams, the competition is headed that way. The European electric teams are incredibly competitive, even amongst the petrol cars, the four-wheel drive-in hubs. AMZ Electric, of course, holding the world record for electric vehicle acceleration, 0 to 100 in 1.72 seconds.
I think you'll find it's actually the world record for any car accelerating 0 to 100 on a public road.
Is that the rule on a public road?
It's on a public road. Otherwise, dragsters would have
exactly
that record
what I was
well and
thinking.
truly. Oh, off course there by Sydney. Really pushing hard. And see, this is when you've been held up by as a driver, you tend to get a little bit of the red mist and push a little bit too hard.
Unfortunately missing the timing system, but entered as a 151.6. University of New South Wales coming around, clearly nursing an issue or two with a 3 minute 16.9.
And I think we might see another first, which we might see the first time in Australia an electric car has passed the same petrol car twice.
Yes, 150.2 last lap round. In fact, will they have passed every car on track? No, not quite. Sydney.
No, Sydney seems to be moving fast enough to stay away from them.
Yes, here we are. I think RMIT are about to. They're going to be stoked with their performance this weekend.
Look, see, the car's just, it's getting the back wheels out. It's got quite a lot of power, quite a lot of response. It's just too far away from the cones. I think with a bit of driver training, this car would be putting lap times up with close to what we saw from Griffiths in that first one, maybe a 145 or a 144.
Talking to some drivers, our drivers reckon they drive our car with either full throttle, half throttle, or no throttle. And that's just the way the torque curve and the responsiveness of the engine works. But listening to some of the electric car drivers talk, there's a lot more throttle control required and a lot more skill in the mid-corner throttle application. In fact, it looks like University of Sydney may lap the same car twice as well.
They can't have too many more laps remaining.
No, by my math, it is 3 laps actually. 3 laps for Sydney, 3 laps for Taylors, 4 for New South Wales, and 10 for RMIT.
I can't remember if we've seen an electric car in Australia complete the 2 endurance runs. That might be another first. Although last year, I think we did see it last year.
Yes, one team last year. I can't remember particularly if it was RMIT or Swinburne, but they won the first in endurance because they were the only electric to finish the endurance.
Oh, no, did they finish both endurance runs?
Oh, both. Sorry. No, they did not.
No, so I don't think we've seen an electric car with the sort of reliability to finish both endurance runs, so this could be another first. And it's a shame not to see the Swinburne electric team here. Both RMIT and Swinburne, both good Victorian universities, have had a bit of a rivalry going for best of the electric cars.
From what I can see, we have the University of Queensland electric car waiting on the dummy grid, and Tokyo Denki have been returned to the dummy grid. Of course, the other electric cars we are missing today are UTS, the Sydney electric car, and a late pull-out from the entry list, Queensland University of Technology. New South Wales sounding very unhealthy there, but across the line again with a 226.7. 3 laps left to get it through the endurance.
Well, it is hugely difficult to get an electric car running and competing at one of these competitions. I'd say a little bit harder than what it is to build a solid petrol car. You pretty much got about the amount of effort to build the car and that again to do the powertrain. So it's a huge achievement for these electric teams, but you do find that at least in Australia that the effort taken from the powertrain means that the chassis can't quite at the level, so the aerodynamics and the suspension can't quite at the level of the petrol teams. But it's only going to be a matter of time, and unless there is a rules change, it's only going to be a number of years before will not be able to win this competition if it remains the way it is.
And I've just seen in the distance RMIT Electric again making it past the University of New South Wales.
One of the reasons the electric cars do so well is in the rules and internationally the vehicles aren't allowed to exceed, I think, 60 kilowatts now. Oh, it's 80 kilowatts. 80 kilowatts any time throughout their range, their rev range. The issue with that is the petrol cars, it's almost impossible to get to 80 kilowatts in the first place, let alone have it throughout the speed range.
Now, there is a significant mass added when you include a battery pack into an electric vehicle, but we are seeing some European teams get a 4-wheel drive electric vehicle with wings down to under 180 kilos.
Well, I think we've seen electric cars with four-wheel drive at around the 160s level.
That is incredible.
Huge amounts of carbon fibre and battery packs that are costing around about $250,000. And that's well outside the budget of all the Australian teams. It's only possible in Europe because of the support of some of the battery manufacturers themselves.
Yes, I hear rumours of some teams in Europe being paid the management being paid a wage by the government, by the university, and things like that. The competition's quite different in Europe.
Yeah, I think what they've done is when it was started in the US, the competition. What was the lap time there for UNSW?
UNSW 2 minutes 19, best lap 201.8, 2 laps to go to finish the endurance.
Well, when the competition was started more than 30 years ago, almost 40 years ago in the US, it was to address a skills gap. Students were graduating out of engineering courses with no practical skills or very limited practical skills, and the competition was introduced by the Society of Automotive Engineers there to try and address that. And we have Sydney here.
University of Sydney last lap 159.6, this lap 144.7.
And so what you saw out of the US was really that sort of approach where it was about practical, and most of the programs there were not integrated into coursework. It was an after-hours activity, and there were no marks sort of given for any of the projects done on those early cars. We're seeing RMIT Electric here.
Rocketing around, I think they're in for their driver change with their last lap being a 1 minute 49.7, their best lap so far.
And then as the competition grew, it started to build into the courses a little bit more and start to see some more coursework. And when the Australian and UK competitions were started around, I think, 2000 for Australia and 99 for the UK, we started to see this program, this Formula SAE program, started embedded into the universities a little closer. And still largely based around undergraduate teaching and project work. So it's probably common in Australia for these students to be doing projects as a final year project or sometimes almost completely as volunteers. In Europe, it seems that they've gone a step further than what Australia and the UK have done, and certainly what the US have done. And they seem to have integrated their program into their research as well, and to the general running of the university, and using it as an opportunity to have industry contacts, working with industry and on larger projects and develop solutions together. Isaac is chasing down his hat, which has been blown away.
I got it.
Right towards the Thunderdome.
Oh, and it looks like Sydney has come in for their driver change. No, Sydney have completed their endurance. Congratulations to the University of Sydney. After a spectacular failure from the hill in the first endurance, I'm very glad to see they've completed the second.
And I'm not sure entirely where I stand on the issue. On one side, I like to see sort of what the competition was originally started for, which was purely about the practical skills of the students and largely keeping the research side out of it. But on the other hand, what we're seeing from some of these electric teams around the world are truly unique solutions that can be applied to road cars in the future and are genuinely making technology in automotive better.
Taylor's racing on to their last lap of the endurance with RMIT Electric lining up, and they are on the track again.
So what's your take on that, Isaac? Where do you think the ideal balance is between the sort of outcomes, these industry and research outcomes, as well as the sort of practical project work for students?
I'd say coming on to the Auckland team in particular, I had no practical skills, not one. I'm excited also to say briefly, Tokyo Denki have made it out on track.
Oh, a round of applause for Tokyo Denki getting out on track, but let's hope that they can get through this endurance.
Yes, oh, and it would look to me like RMIT have caught Taylor's racing again. I think that might be the third time.
Oh, that's
It'll be a record for them. But yeah, I've learned a whole heap being on the team now for 3 years, and I think that without it, I'd find it very overwhelming to go into industry where it's going to be infinitely better for the companies I could work for if I have some form of practical skill and the ability to work in a workshop safely with the people around me. I mean, workshop safety can't be overstated.
Yeah, it's important to know when students are working on these cars, it's often late at night.
Oh, and New South Wales have stopped on track at the final hairpin, and yellows are up. Well, hopefully they can restart their vehicle. They're only 1 or 2 laps from completing the endurance.
And universities are well known for being quite risk averse. So.
Sorry, that is Sydney. No,
that's UNSW stalled over there.
I've lost them off the timing screen. Yes, they've 2 laps left to complete for their endurance. Yes, I mean, within our team we have the role of workshop foreman who's in charge of keeping the workshop in order, but also general health and safety. And all 5 of our kind of top-level management are required to have first aid certificates because inevitably working on these cars, even with all the safety measures taken, things do happen. I'm glad to say nothing serious in our workshop in the 12 years that we've been running, but we are prepared for it. And I think it's important going into industry with the knowledge that engineering is quite often dangerous. And motorsport as a thing is just dangerous. Everyone with a blue wristband here. Motorsport is dangerous. Entry at own risk.
Yeah, and it is definitely a tenuous link with the universities. And we see RMIT pass Taylor again.
No, that was Tokyo Denki, in
Tokyo
fact.
Denki passed Taylor, sorry.
Yes, first lap out, passing Taylor. Yellow's being waved at the corner, but the marshals have cleared the car. RMIT around on their first lap, producing a 2:10.9 on their out lap. Well done. You were saying about a tenuous link.
Yeah, the universities tend to... Oh, no, we see Tokyo Denki stopped out on track. Hopefully they can get it restarted.
This is Taylor's Racing coming around on their last lap. They don't seem too fussed about making their way around the Tokyo Denki car, but they have. Nicking a cone. I'm sure they won't count that anyway. Everyone on the hill, get ready to congratulate Taylor's Racing for completing their endurance. Oh, look, I got the lap count right.
Oh, they are given the checkered flag, and this
Across
is
the
Taylor
line. Oh,
crossing the line.
no. Everyone willing them on, I'm sure, to complete this endurance.
Oh, no.
Oh, dear. Yes.
Oh.
The sound of a healthy restart. asking to follow the course. These cars do not have a reverse gear. This could be interesting.
More power, better fuel economy, a cleaner, more efficient engine. They're just a few of the advantages of having your car tuned on a Dynotech dyno. To find your nearest Dynotech workshop, go to dyno.com.au. Dynotech by Dyno Dynamics.
Tokyo Denki completing their first lap. Watch the driver shift that car. It does look like a robot. Smashing the gear into place with a 3:14.7 on their first lap.
I think that's actually DriveBot 3.2.
And here we are, Redback Racing coming around again.
Right now, there's a lot to get excited about at your local Holden dealer. Like this, and this, and this. But what's even more exciting is that there's going to be another 24 new world-class cars coming to local Holden dealerships right across Australia. Now that's a future I want to see.
Don't tiptoe through life. Don't live quietly, politely, invisibly. Travel against the grain. Take on today and let tomorrow know you're coming. The new VF2, the most powerful Commodore ever, is here. Power ahead.
Yeah, it's been a really exciting day. Some of the biggest numbers we've had at the Ricardo's Races days. Fantastic weather. Melbourne switched it on. Great circuit in Sandown and some pretty enthusiastic young kids, both boys and girls. Interesting variety of cars today, and everyone started off at a comfortable pace. By the end of the session, everyone was driving really well. Their confidence sort of nurtured along quite nicely, and everyone enjoyed the lapping, and lots of smiles on faces, which is the main thing.
It's an awesome track, I know that, but it's going to be an awesome opportunity to get to enjoy some hot laps and little racecraft and stuff like that.
It's a lot of fun. I've also learnt a lot about kick the speed, and the braking one was really good. Yeah, it's definitely a good experience now that I have my learners, and so trying this stuff out was really good. More awareness for when I'm on the road.
The reason Daniel's come on board sport as an ambassador. You know, it's the sport that Daniel loves, he's passionate about, and he wants more people, more young kids getting involved in the sport. No matter what discipline it is, I mean, we're out on the circuit today, but whether it's rally, off-road, karting, circuit racing, motor carners, carnacross, I'm probably going to miss a few different disciplines, but he just wants people involved in the sport. And you know, when he found out about the program, he was really excited to get on board as an ambassador. It's not about setting lap records. Let's get that story straight very quickly. We're catering to all different levels. There's some kids that come that have never actually driven a car before, so we cater for that as well. It's an exciting day, and we sort of, there's times we have to cater the coaching on a case-by-case basis, depending on the experience level that the kids bring. But by the end of the day, it's all about building their confidence in the car, enjoying themselves, and just loving what they're doing.
We've been doing some investigation into air-cooled engines, and one of the things that you find when you're looking into it, we'll wait for this time from Queensland.
The first lap from UQ Electric, a clean lap, 2 minute 22.0.
So when we were looking into the sort of air-cooled engine and fins and so on, and what you would need to get a Formula SAE car to cool, and you do come to the realisation, although we call these cars water cooled, at the end the engine heat is taken out by the air. So what you're using is the air-water heat exchanger. That's what the radiator is. So all of these cars, in a fashion, are air cooled. The difference being that you've just got the water as a medium, which has quite a high specific heat. Now, if you look at some of these cars that are going around that are basically constantly at 100% throttle, or spending a large amount of time at 100% throttle, you're maybe not getting the full advantage of that water cooling. So I fully believe that at some stage you would be able to build a successful Formula SAE car that's air cooled rather than water cooled.
Well, my understanding is ECU have gone the custom engine route. Why didn't you go straight to air cooled?
Well, there might be. There's always concepts that are considered. There's a couple of engines on the drawing board, so it isn't a one-off for ECU. They are in the game of custom engine development, and it has certainly been considered for future engines. I won't tell you where the next couple of engines are going, but it's certainly on the drawing board.
And there is RMIT Electric passing another car on track. We do have yellows being waved in the main area. There is a car stopped on track. Ooh, let's see if we can see it. RMIT coming around doing a 1:46.5, their quickest lap so far, but UQ are probably stopped on track. Yes, the UQ electric vehicle appears to be stopped on track around the corner from where I can see, so I can't quite tell you what has happened.
Yeah, in the process of doing the sort of different engine considerations, we found that a number of teams around the world had considered air-cooled engines and decided not to implement them. And often when you're looking at that, teams are considering their using design matrices or sometimes very subjective reasons for choosing, and almost sometimes they have a number of design decisions or design options, and they'll somehow manage to get their decision matrix working for the one that they wanted to choose in the first place.
It's funny though how that happens. Design projects for students too. Probably seem to pick the thing that you end up doing before you even start.
And I'm sure that goes on a lot in this competition. So you look in there and you see that all of the top teams might have moved towards a single-cylinder engine, and you do your design matrix, and there you go, out pops the single-cylinder as being the ideal choice, even though your team may have been a team that had been running fours for quite a long time, or a team that might not have access to that engine. You might be a team in India and you have no way to get a hold of that. So often these decisions are made subjectively instead of objectively.
I mean, a secret from the Auckland team is that we do quite a bit of lap sim at the beginning of the year. I'm not going to say it's accurate, but it does show quite a point spread amongst the single-cylinder winged carbon fibre cars compared to the space frame four-cylinder no aero cars. But when you come to competition, you find that the point spread is a lot closer than your lap sim predicted. What we take from that is that a reliable, well-built car is going to perform a lot better than anything that you kind of try and push the design with. RMIT Electric across the line, 153.8.
Well, one of the things I was involved with point sims and so on back when, as most people are, I think, when they get involved in this competition, back when we were at UWA, and there seemed to be very small differences between the between some of the top sort of ideas here. So if we were to take an Auckland single-cylinder sort of lightweight car up against a Monash turbocharged single with big wings, or a Wollongong four-cylinder with big wings, you might find that between those concepts there might be, I don't know, 15, 20 dynamic points. There's not a lot in it. There are concepts that are distinctly better. With any approach to engineering, there are better solutions out there. There is an ideal. We don't know if we've reached that ideal yet. But you don't see the sort of closeness that you see in point sims at the actual competition. And that's because implementation of the concept is probably the most important thing we see here. Monash, if they win this competition, they might be winning this competition by 50 points or by 100 points. It's going to be a fairly large margin, I would imagine. And that's them not running ideally. Their concept is not worth that many points. It's really their implementation, their development, their project management, their driver training that's made that difference. And that's why when you're with a team like Griffith that's come out with a very simple car, maybe the best option for you in the next year is not to change up too much, but to work on your implementation, work on your project management, focus on, whoa, Indian car spinning around there.
Yay! Managing to turn the vehicle around. And RMIT Electric, congratulations. They have completed their second endurance for the day.
I don't know what happened with that Indian car. It's from Rocket. It looked like it didn't have any power at all, and then all of a sudden lighted up. But that is the first time that I can think of in Australia that an electric car has finished both endurance runs. And not only did they finish both endurance runs, but they were running very fast. And in that last run, I think they passed petrol cars, I don't know, 5 or 6 times.
Easily 5 or 6. It was incredible to watch. I know the point of this isn't open wheel-to-wheel racing, but it's always good to see a car pass another one on track.
Well, absolutely. They should be very proud of what they've done, and they will win the awards for the best electric team here. But they're going to place pretty highly up in the overall awards as well.
I'd say they'll be mid-pack in the petrols, and they'll be very happy with that.
It looks like we've got the Indian car having problems out there, the Rocky car. And it looks like it's going again, but I'm hopeful, but I'd be surprised if they're able to manage this whole endurance event.
With UQ Electric unfortunately stopping on track, this is the last car I think we'll see out today. Oh no? Oh yes, I have yet to see UTS come out for a second time.
Yeah, they didn't finish the first one, did they?
No, they didn't. They were looking strong, and then on one of their last laps they ended up stationary at the far end of the track. The Rocky car is making its way around the track.
It's always a little bit of a disappointment when we see the teams come here and struggling to meet all the events. And we've had a number of teams from India come here, and the conditions for engineering in India are very different than what we find in Australia, Greater Europe or the US, where there is quite a large established industry of high technology and all of that filters back to the universities. The picture in India is very different.
Unfortunately, we have seen the Rocky car stop again on track. Yes, they are moving again, though.
Oh.
We know that somewhere deep in there is a lot of power, and they did manage to loop it. Hearing support from one of the other electric teams up here on the hill. Go Rocky.
Oh, this is a real shame. I just hope that we see some of these Indian universities involved in the competition, sticking with it and taking lessons away from these competitions. I think it's very hard to learn about the cars and what to do without vehicles that are running reliably. There's a huge difference from going from your first reliable car, and then you really get a lot of time. You look at a team like Canterbury. 3 cars in, if you can build reliable cars and get some time on them, they can go very fast. Okay, we are going to have to end the commentary here, unfortunately. We are ending the commentary at this point. It doesn't look like there's going to be any more endurance running. There's marshals around the Indian car. It's been a great day of commentary. It's been quite enjoyable up in the hill, watching some incredibly fast cars early on and some really close contests, and seeing some disappointing failures. Certainly my own team, it was incredibly disappointing. We've seen teams turn it around. So Isaac's team, Auckland, going from being incredibly disappointed to not finishing the first endurance and come back and put in some really fast lap times, even though the vehicle's stuck in first gear. We saw Griffiths out there in the first endurance session with very quick lap times, the 3rd fastest lap time in that first session, and quite reliable speed. We've seen a lot over this weekend, the skid pad and acceleration. Some really good results there. A 3.8 second acceleration run is absolutely world class, and 4.9 in the skid pad. That's very hard to beat anywhere else as well. And that's on a skid pad here that's got quite a large bump, so it's a very impressive finish there. The autocross times are just some wild driving from Wollongong. I think everyone was cheering as he finally got a clean lap. I think there were so many fast lap times where he was knocking out cones with the back wheels, and beautiful clean lap in the end. And just that the tension as Monash weren't able to get up and run in the autocross, and only got those 4 runs in the end, and it was enough. It was enough for them to give them the first in autocross, and likely they are the likely winners of this event. But the places after Monash, it's very, very close. So we won't really know how those standings will be until the awards are presented. So thank you very much from me. Thank you very much for attending this and catching this on In Pit Lane, who have done a fantastic job of getting all the camera work, and hopefully you can enjoy this throughout the year.
Yes, so thanks from me, Isaac, up on the hill here too. Thanks to Kevin for inviting me up to commentate, and hopefully I haven't bored all of you to death. Again, a really big thanks to In Pit Lane and RMI TV, and to SAE Australasia for organising the Formula SAE-A 2015 event. As a member of one of the teams, I can say we had a great time. And with that, we will wrap up the commentary for the day. Thank you all for watching. We'll see you here next year.
Brian Crow, and I'm the Motorsport Director of the President WRX Car Club of Victoria. This year we're running nine rounds of the sprints. Tracks all around Victoria, so Winton, Calder, Phillip Island, Sandown, and we've got a round in at Wakefield Park as well. Yeah, I think the club's just a bunch of like-minded enthusiasts that they've got their little toy cars, and they either want to compete in the motorsport side of things, or they want to partake in the social aspects of the club. Whether you're involved in motorsport and you want to get out onto a track just to enjoy the day and make use of the car you've got, or whether or not you just want to polish it to the nth degree and win yourself a show and shine. And there's different parts there, so get out there, get involved. The clubs are there, and it's a good thing.